To support this podcast, go to positivesarcasm.com/donate. Any amount is appreciated. Once again, positivesarcasm.com/donate. Thank you and enjoy the program. Wowee! Jay here, positivesarcasm.com, recorded here from the Spare Parts Studio alongside New Hampshire's beautiful, rather windy seacoast. For entertainment purposes only, like, subscribe, share, donate, positivesarcasm.com/donate. Any amount is appreciated. If you have questions, concerns, or comments, if you're in the social media, you can hit me up on Instagram at @positive_sarcasm. If you want to hit me up my website, go to positivesarcasm.com. Go to the contact section. That's one way to get a hold of me. And then, of course, old-fashioned way, you can email me directly, positivesarcasm@outlook.com, subject matter podcast. There you go. But I check my junk mail, so whatever, just in case you have a shitty Gmail account. I mean, I'll read it and I'll decide if you're a human or one of them, Nigerian bots or something like that. Bots. We'll get to them in a little bit. What was my last episode about? 3-Eye Atlas? I told you that whole alien comet thing was bullshit. Anyways, we got a lot to unpack here. I got a lot of highlights here, and I got 2 articles about the same thing. And then something about Neo, the new robot coming out, are available on pre-order. Available. Lease yours today. It's only a matter of time before household chore or robots that do household chores are basically mixed with silicone surfaces and become sex robots. It's only a matter of time. Sorry. I mean, it's disgusting, but, it's jiu-jitsu or reverse cowgirl. So Fortune magazine and Reuters are reporting, and of course everybody else is reporting. I mean, this is only a matter of time. The sun only gets so big and then eventually sheds a layer of itself, that Amazon has cut 14,000 workers. There are reports that they're going to be shedding at least up to possibly 30,000. So what is that in terms of the current unemployment rate in the United States? Well, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is, I believe, funded by the government, which is currently shut down. So things like these, not to mention the military, not to mention the IRS, not to mention shipyard employees who work on Navy ships, not to mention air traffic controllers, don't get paid right now. So obviously statistics like these either get delayed or have to be funded another way, or ultimately they just don't come out. So, but this is recent. There shouldn't be any huge jumps. But right now it sits at 4.3%? So what does that mean in terms of 350 to 400 million Americans? Well, that means that about just over 7 million Americans who are looking for a job and can't find one, or looking for a job and haven't chosen one. That's another way of looking at it. So you're unemployed. You're registered as unemployed. You may be seeking unemployment, or you may be collecting unemployment. You either didn't get that job, or you're unwilling to accept that job as a manager at McDonald's. I don't know. In either case, you're not employed. You don't have a full-time gig. There you go. So that's about over 7 million Americans at this time. Around 4% is, that's expected. There's people who are in between jobs. There's innovation in industry leading to your job being terminated, or there was a layoff, or you weren't very good at your job, or I don't know, maybe you slept with your secretary and shouldn't have. I don't know. In either case, these are the things that are leading to ultimately 4.3% unemployment, which will probably go up another couple percentage points sometime around, as early as Q1, Q2 of next year, with the other innovations that are coming out. But Amazon obviously is a very large company. Okay, a lot of moving parts, but a ship that honestly what I think of Amazon, and I've said a lot of things about Amazon, good and bad, plenty bad, but ultimately, for a ship that big, it moves and steers quicker than I thought. But in a way, I guess if it was a ship, how do you, as a big ship, how do you steer so quickly? Well, one of the ways is having excellent suspension, an excellent steering rack, great rudder control. And another way of really being able to steer a ship that big, another way of doing it is ditching weight. So if you're like a tanker and you're coming across the ocean and you've got to pivot really quickly, one of the ways of being able to make that turn so quickly is if you're top heavy, ditch some cargo. Ditch some cargo, drop some fuel. Now all of a sudden you're lighter, maybe you can turn quicker. It's one of the strategies that Amazon is known to do and has done again. If you want to be lighter, shed some weight. If you want to be faster and more agile, ditch some weight. That's what they do. That's what they've just done. 14,000 jobs. They are big. They have large warehouses. They are one of the fastest delivery services in the United States. We're talking about in comparison with USPS, FedEx, DHL, and UPS, and whomever else. They are one of the fastest. They have their main fleet, which is comprised of their electric cars, their electric freight carriers, and then of course they have the subcontractors who show up in shitty Dodge Caravans that the person driving them also doubles as a painter during the day. So there's those. They have their contracts, they have their mainline trucks, and then they have their subcontractors who deliver stuff. So they move quickly. And they also deliver packages for USPS and other vendors too. They can be the main fleet and the puddle jumpers. That's what makes Amazon so good on the front lines of getting things so quickly. So kudos to them for doing that. But don't be surprised if a company that quick can be also that soulless, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. Ultimately, it is a company. Its job is to survive. So that it can continue to deliver its product or its services in a timely manner with quality, and ultimately survive itself and make money. If that's its sole purpose, driving innovation. Another way. Now, when you say, everybody thinks that every time there is a job loss, a layoff at a company, everybody, they always assume that it's like frontline employees. If you need your frontline employees, you don't fire them. That's strategy. If you need your frontline employees to move product A from point A to point B, move it here, there, do processing or whatever, you keep them. So ultimately, yes, frontline employees do get laid off an awful lot for whatever reasons. Generally, supply and demand is one of the reasons. They're too expensive to maintain, so you have to have one person do the work of two people. Okay, that's one thing. But ultimately, a person on the front line is not as expensive to keep on the payroll as somebody who doesn't make you any money. A person on the front line makes you money. Okay, a person on the farm who's picking berries, who's picking fruit, picking vegetables, picking wearable products. Those people are taking your product and bringing it to where it needs to go for processing. That makes you money. Management, depending upon the level, low-level management, middle management, does not make you money. They just manage the workforce. So but that costs you money. So if a frontline employee makes somewhere between, $14 and $20 an hour, but helps move your product for you, whereas middle management makes between, $24 and $30 an hour, and they can be quickly replaced by an algorithm, or if you have 25,000 middle management, and you can reduce that down to 10,000 middle management. Well, the ones that stay are definitely going to want to keep their job, so they have no problem with doing the work of 2 people. Well, they have a problem with it. They're just not going to say anything about it. That's the kicker. They're not going to say anything about it. Is this light on? No, I should have turned this light on. Silly me. There we go. They're just not going to say anything about it. They're just going to say sayonara to the other 14,000, or they're not going to say anything at all because they ultimately want to keep their job. Whereas the other 14,000, you're just costing us money, so kick rocks. So what did Amazon do? 14,000. Did they do it willy-nilly? Did they do it because they're not making enough money? No. Amazon knows what they're doing. All right. You could, if you picture yourself, if you're not in a middle management role, picture yourself in one. If you are middle management, picture yourself as an upper management. The job of upper management is to innovate, increase, soften, aim, ultimately smaller, faster, cheaper. If you're middle management, always know that upper management is planning your death. All right? Either planning your death or the people under you's death. Now, here's the thing. You can get rid of the cheaper labor first, but if you need the cheaper labor first and you're ultimately planning to get rid of some of them due to innovation, what is faster to deploy? An algorithm or a robot who can do the work of cheap labor? So if you have a robot needs, first of all, it needs energy. It needs an algorithm. It needs a path. It needs parts. It needs maintenance. It needs a protocol. It needs an if-then scenario. It needs all of these things. So say you have an algorithm that moves product A to product B. Well, if it's depending upon the price and the innovation of the robot, okay, I want you to take this package. I want you to walk down this corridor, and I want you to deliver it over here and then type in this feature set. Okay, well, you have to design this. Ultimately, it's like a go-kart. It needs camera sensors. It needs a clear line of sight, and it has to basically take this thing and go down this path and make a left and deliver it at this point safely so it can get on the conveyor. This package can get on the conveyor belt and move along with its journey. So you have to design that. A lot like in the 1960s. You ever see that movie? I think it was The Founder. It was with Michael Keaton. It's a really interesting movie, kind of a clever movie, cool movie about how McDonald's was created. The original McDonald's was created in California. Ray Kroc, was it Ray Kroc? Ray Kroc, I think, was the guy who ultimately took over. But there was the two brothers who founded McDonald's, and they had a system where ultimately it was this guy was on burgers, this guy was on fries, this person was at the cash register, and the way the design of the kitchen was so that the burger would move through a process in like 90 seconds. There would be a burger literally within 90, I don't know, I don't remember the time, but it was like 90 seconds. You order the burger with the fries, and then boom, it went through this whole system, and then there it was. And there was no mess. You had your wrapper, you ate your food right where you were, and then you could throw it in the trash. There's absolutely no mess. So they created that. That's innovation. He took that innovation nationwide by purchasing the land and franchising out the restaurants. Made millions. Where the fuck was I going with this? So ultimately, that was innovation that led to McDonald's success. Amazon has to design that way itself, where they have, if you're going to have an innovative system like that, where people eventually they have a path. How do you get burger from point A to point B in a certain amount of time? Well, back in the 60s, it was people. You had people doing that because the technology wasn't there at the time to do that. So you needed a person at the front to take the order, input it into the system, which there was no system back then. You probably wrote it down or something like that, and you handed it off, and then boom, 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 and a series of people followed these protocols in this well-designed kitchen, and then the burger, boom, landed in your lap. Well, if say it took 10 to 15 people, Like Five Guys has a system like that. Five Guys Burgers and Fries has a system like that. In-N-Out Burger has a system like that, where it is a lot of people who do this job and deliver you, quick food. And I'm not saying anything about the quality of the food. I'm not going to say that, okay? We've all eaten at McDonald's or In-N-Out or Whataburger or Shake Shack or Five Guys, and there you go, okay? We all as children have enjoyed a simple dollar menu burger from McDonald's. We all have. We all know that flavor. We all love that flavor. So say what you want. But ultimately, the innovation of how they got the burger out so quickly, undisputed heavyweight champion. Amazon's following the same process, but now we're now 60 years later with technology being so far ahead where you can set up that Amazon warehouse where the frontline employees can be replaced by robots. But apparently the pathways and the algorithm for them hasn't been set up yet. So those frontline employees, like when you go to like a Ford assembly plant, yeah, there are frontline employees there on a conveyor belt, but they're being assisted by these robot arms helping them move these heavy materials into the car. But the frontline employees are still there for now. But it helps ensure ultimately the robot and the human is a good pairing for quality assurance. At least in my opinion, because sometimes the human eye can see something that the robot can't or is not designed to see. So there's that. So designing a process, an algorithm, and the mechanics to replace the frontline employee is a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of planning, and ultimately, if you have to redesign an entire warehouse, that is a lot of money. And to duplicate that across multiple warehouses across the country, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. But a middle manager, you could wipe a middle manager off the face of the earth with a single keystroke. They occupy a space. They don't do any hard labor. They manage a workforce. They manage a team. They manage a process. Well, all the ifs-then scenarios that you give to a middle manager and all the employee reviews and interviews, job interviews and all these other things that a middle manager does, these team leads do, can be replaced by the click of a button. Can be replaced by an algorithm. You don't need warehouse space. You don't need paths. You don't need major expensive equipment that requires monthly maintenance or weekly maintenance. They just have an office space or a desk or a cubicle. And ultimately, you've just taken that, say it's you have an office in, I don't know, insert town, in insert state, and there's 30 people working at that office that is a satellite office of the main headquarters, and their job is to oversee the local warehouse that sends stuff from point A to point B. Well, now you've just replaced those 30 people, or the majority of those 30 people, with an algorithm or with a macro. So what happens to those people? Well, it's like, now two of those people can manage all these teams with the help of this new software, with this new macro, with this new AI. Okay, well, what's that average middle manager making? Between $45,000 and $75,000? All right, well, how much did it cost to design this new AI algorithm? All right, so there's thing one. So, okay, this simple AI, this simple chat GPT or whatever, does all of the things that these middle managers can do. Okay, so now you've replaced, let's just do an average here. Let me get a calculator going. So say you've got 30 middle managers, and you can replace it, you can drop it down to 6. So let's say 24 middle managers are gone. So 24, and let's just say the average, $55,000. So 24 middle managers times $55,000. on average. That is 1.32, so just over $1.3 million per year just in payroll. Just in payroll. And that's one satellite office. $1.3 million replaced by some algorithm. Now, also on top of that, on top of the payroll, you've also got their pensions, 401k matching, health, dental, vision benefits, workman's comp, human resources, all these other items. And on top of that, the space, the physical space that they occupy, or if they work from home, the internet bill that they were utilizing, all these other factors that are another additional hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, per year. We're talking about 24 people. 24. $1.3 million. Amazon cut 14,000. Take that number into account. Okay, look, think about it. I just said if you cut 24 middle managers at $55,000 a year, equaling 1.3 million, let's do this number. $55,000 a year. Is that right? Yes. Times 14000. Enter. Holy shit. What number is that? 700. Let's see. How many fucking zeros is that? Let's do this. I can't even tell. I don't know if that's $770 million. I think it is. Let's do this on the internet just to make sure. 14,000. Yeah, 14,000 times 55000. How much is what? Hold on. See. 14,000. Sorry, I'm a fucking retard. 19,000 times 55,000. Yes. Let's see here. Yeah, I think it's 707. So 7. See. 0. Tens. God, I'm dumb. I can't tell. I got to be honest with you. I can't tell. This is where I get stupid. So hold on a second here. Nope. Okay. Cancel. 7 0 0 0 0. Wait, 770 comma 0 0 0. That's 770,000. So that's 4. I wasn't a mathematician. 4 zeros and 3. So that's 7 zeros. I've got. There's that. So that's 770,000. $770 million. $770 million. Sorry that took so long. Ooh, it's hot in here. Think about that. $770 million. $55,000 per person. And then you add in, like I said, benefits, office space, electricity costs of running the infrastructure to maintain those people. We're talking over $1 billion in savings. We're just doing as a hypothetical. Simply replaced by an algorithm that they either are indeed themselves, bought from another company, contracted out for cheaper money. So why get rid of, like I said, until they are able to design a physical infrastructure capable of supporting artificial or automation to replace the manual labor workforce that they currently have, which is a lot. With the click of a keystroke, click of a button, $1 billion of middle management gone. It's just a better way of doing it. It's a better way of doing business. It's very, very efficient. You should always keep in the back of your mind as middle management, upper management is planning your death. They're always doing that. Okay? If you are not in upper management and you are a middle manager, somebody's looking over you, planning how they can get rid of you. And it's nothing malicious. That's their job. That's their job. If you are not a director, you should be questioning the next 5 years. Not even. The next year to 2 years to next 3 years. So next 1 to 3 years. Next 12 to 36 months. Within the span of a lease, your job could be gone. What is your plan? So they took middle management over labor. People are like, how is that possible? I just explained it to you. They target as many as 30,000 corporate jobs, sources say. They're planning to cut as many as 30,000 corporate jobs beginning on Tuesday as the company pairs expenses and compensates for overhiring during the peak demand of the pandemic, according to 3 people familiar with the matter. The figure represents a small... Now, 30,000 jobs. Let's say it's 30,000. That is a drop in the bucket to the actual unemployment rate, which is 7.4 million at this time. That doesn't even include the people who are not even participating in the workforce, which is a lot. We're talking... It could be 40%. People... who knows? Maybe they're illegal immigrants, people still living with mom and dad, people who have just quit life a long time ago. Ultimately, those people are not even factored in as well. Figure represents a small percentage of Amazon's 1.5 million. Amazon alone has 1.55 million total employees. Nearly 10% of its roughly 350,000 corporate employees that will mark Amazon's largest job cut since 2022. Like I said, 3 years. Within 3 years, within the span of a lease, your job could end. They eliminated 27,000 positions then. So that could have been a half billion to a full $1 billion, if not more. Back then, they just eliminated another $1 billion easily right there. Spokesperson declined to comment. Amazon has been trimming smaller numbers of jobs over the past 2 years across multiple divisions, including devices, communications, and podcasting. The cuts beginning this week may affect a variety of divisions, including human resources, no-brainer, known as people experience and technology, or PXT, operations, devices and services, and Amazon Web Services. People said managers of impacted teams were asked to undergo training on Monday on how to communicate with staff following email notifications that will start going out on Tuesday morning. Amazon CEO Andy Jassy, obviously it is not Jeff Bezos anymore, he's out pimping out life, is undertaking an initiative to reduce what he described as an excess of bureaucracy, including by reducing the numbers of managers. He installed an anonymous complaint line for identifying inefficiencies that has elicited some 1,500 responses and over 450 process changes, he said earlier this year. Basically a rat line. He said in June that the increased use of artificial intelligence tools would likely lead to further job cuts. There you go. The latest move signals that Amazon is likely realizing enough AI-driven productivity gains within corporate teams to support a substantial reduction in force. As I just said, Amazon has been also under pressure in short term to offset the long-term investments in building out its AI infrastructure. You need to free up this money so you can invest it in this. Full scope of the round job cuts were not immediately clear. The people, blah, 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 blah. Resource divisions could be targeted with a cut of roughly 15%. Program begun. So you get the point. Obviously, their job is innovation, and they are planning to ultimately reduce their workforce to as many actual bodies as necessary. So, and of course, there's other things to consider. There's a lot of other things to consider here. So another thing is, getting rid of middle management's easy. That's easy. That has been something that's always been done. Always been done. If you have manager in your title, you can be considered depending on the size of your company. If you are a company of maybe 30 or 40 employees, then not as likely. If you are a company of 200 employees, that should raise a red flag right there as far as whether or not you might be around within 1 to 3 years. So there's that to consider. But yeah, like I said, middles are more expensive. You can replace them with a cheap algorithm. And as minimum wage goes up, so minimum wage, even though that is a factor in the cheaper frontline labor force, it's also a factor is if the labor force, the introductory labor force makes this much money, well, then the middle management target price has to go up as well. And we saw a demand in wages go up when inflation hit. So ultimately, now even though cheap labor is more expensive, it's still needed. So the cheap labor, the cheaper labor is still needed at this time. Whereas innovation in technology and getting products out the door or services out the door, middle management is not necessarily needed. They're now more expensive and more expendable. So you can tell them to kick rocks much easier than you can the cheaper labor force. However, in places that are jacking up their minimum wage, such as places like New York and California, to be perfectly direct, places like California, you have two options. Well, yeah, you have two options. But I'll backtrack a little bit depending upon how good this new On It Alpha Brain works. I got the neuro gummies. That if you're going to start paying your frontline employees at McDonald's $20 an hour because the state of California says that's the minimum wage here, you don't like it, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, cool. We're going to make, guys, guess what? Good news. I'm going to be flipping burgers and serving fries for $20 an hour. And then the company does one of two things. Cool. You guys are eligible to make $20 an hour. Just want to let you know you're now being replaced by a computer in the front lobby where people are going to click the button and order that way. So the person who sits at the cash register, you're no longer needed. So the state of California says I have to pay you $20. That's if I employ you. You're fired. You've been replaced by a touchscreen computer. Get out. Or option 2, they can't afford to have a business in California due to the price of having an employee, so they just close. Be like, we can have restaurants and retail stores and other businesses in Washington State, Oregon, Nevada, New Mexico, all these other places, but we can't have it in California because the minimum wage there is too high. So we're going to close up all those shops, and those employees can either take a severance or move to these other shops because we can't afford to pay you in California. We can afford to pay you in New Mexico and Arizona and Nevada. We just can't afford to pay you there. So we're not going to make any profit in California. So if we can't make any profit, there's no point in keeping the stores open because even though we need you on the front lines, we don't have the innovation to replace you. So we don't have the innovation to replace you, and we can't afford to keep you and make a profit. So we're just going to close down the store altogether. So now 12 employees who work at said place, none of them now have jobs due to the rise in the minimum wage in that state. So now they're all gone. They get like a severance package, or maybe they move out of state, or they're just told kick rocks. Your last paycheck will be a week from now. And here's your back pay for vacation. That's it. Gone. See you, bye. So just because innovation hasn't replaced the frontline worker yet doesn't mean that there's other factors, such as regulation, that can get you shit canned as well. So there's that to consider. Now, other people maybe people are thinking right now that there's a job safe haven somewhere, like the government. Well, we just learned recently that government shutdowns, just because you can keep your job in the government doesn't mean that they're going to be open to fund you. Like air traffic controllers right now, they're not getting paid, but they can't. They're still working. They have to. And what I'm saying is, if you are a government employee, if the government says you have to work, even though you're not receiving a paycheck, you have to work. If your schedule says you need to be at LAX at 5:30 in the morning to push tin, which is slang for managing air traffic control, planes landing and taking off and entering airspace and things like that. If they say your schedule 5:30, be there. Am I getting paid? No. Well, why am I coming to work? Because if you don't, we will fire you. You cannot strike as a federal employee. At least with the air traffic controllers, you can't. So you have to come to work, but you're not going to get paid. So we don't care if you. We'll say we don't care. It's irrelevant to us that you can make rent or not, or you can make your mortgage payment, or make your car payment that gets you to the airport to do your job. You still have to show up for work. Figure it out. Take the bus. Walk. We don't care if it's a 2-hour walk where it would have been a 20-minute drive. You have to be here at 5:30. If you're not, even though we're not paying you, we're going to fire you. So the government is not. A government job is not a safe haven job. TSA, blah blah blah. You can look up for yourself who is getting which branches of government, which government jobs are getting paid during the shutdown. That's a scary thing. So ultimately, you need to, for now, look at what am I going to be doing in 12 months? Am I going to be am I a valuable asset at the price range that I'm at for 12 months? How about 2 years, and how about 3 years? And this is a good way of looking at things. Is there a pathway for you to continue being valuable, or move up, or move to another division that's going to be around, and just try to think outside the box for your own benefit? What's crazier is as AI gets obviously better and better and starts to ditch some of these things that are, clearly starting to become more of a two-dimensional gig. It's where are these people going to go? What's their plan? Now, you also have to consider another thing, like if you're laying all these people who can't afford to buy stuff or pay rent or go get groceries or go buy consumer products, it's like, well, the demand for those products or those things are going to go down. Therefore, do they just sit on the shelf? Do those apartments stay open for rent? Those prices of houses go down? These are another things. It's like, if there's no demand and there's a ton of supply, do the prices drop? Well, a lot of the times, yes, but some of the times, no. Some of the times, no. So, I don't like walking into Walmart all that much. I really, that's maybe 1% of my month. Ultimately, I don't like walking around that place. I find it very depressing. But I see people might get mad about this, but when I go into Walmart, I look and I think of the not Catcher in the Rye. There's a book. And I think of all the people who would have been farm hands. I'll be straight up with you. There's a lot of people who work at a Walmart or work at a Target or work in these types of areas. They're very frontline jobs, like Walmart greet or something. A lot of them are not. They're not Einstein. They're not Einstein. They're not mentally. They're not Einstein. Physically, they're not Michael Jordan. They're not the superior human product. But back in the day, they would have been great farm hands. They would have been good to do things that were, maybe it's hard right now to find farm hands. I know where obviously a lot of them are coming from, but a lot of them would have been farmhands. But they went from being farmhands to being Walmart greeters. And unfortunately, their lifestyle has taken a turn for the worse because of that. If you're a farmhand, you work on a farm, and you are subject to the weather, you get fresher air, you get a form of exercise and cardio and strength training, and ultimately your body is designed to work. You earn your food, you earn your rest. You know, it's a hard day's, it's an honest day's work, whether you work on a tractor, you work out in the field, you work with the cows. So you go from being this hardened labor force to welcome to Walmart. And then that's all you do all day is just sit up there or lean against a post or check to make sure people aren't stealing things. So you go from being, now you've gone from being this maybe more intelligent, more stronger eye, stronger person out in the field to being this person that just glazes over and waves at people as they walk in. And then as you're out there in the field, you're subject to the food, the intake. You go from being, exposed to a sun, natural vitamin D, fresher air. Now you're in artificial light and breathing in everybody else's filth as they walk in and out of the door. Manufactured, HVAC systems. And then the food that you take in. If you're on a farm, you're probably going to eat what's on the farm. Freshly squeezed milk from the mouse's tit, from the cow's tit, goat's milk, tomatoes, vegetables, meat, lamb, fish, whatever. You're eating farm food most likely. And you go from eating Whole Foods to working at Walmart eating macaroni and cheese. You go from probably looking like Devin Larratt to looking like a fucking blob. So you've become the corporate giant who is out there only to preserve itself, has turned you into a honest day's work to a processed food eating soulless waver at the front of the building. Like I said, you replaced farm fresh with Velveeta shells and cheese. Now, another thing is, if you guys go and look up Neo Robot, Neo the robot, which is coming out. It's available for pre-order and delivery as soon as 2026. This thing is available for purchase in 3 different colors. One of them is actually black. Do with that what you will. And that $20,000, or you can lease it for 3 years for like $499 a month. That's going to walk around and fold your laundry and sweep your floors and do other things. And it's only like 60-something pounds. Me personally, I'll rake my own goddamn leaves. Thank you very much. But what is it? Why? First of all, do you want this human-y shadow figure in the middle of the night just kind of standing there recharging? Why would you buy that? What, so you can make better use of your time? For the price of a Nissan Altima, dead ass, you can buy this human robot that's going to fold your laundry and sweep your floors and cook your dinner and massage your feet so you can make better use of your time. You're already blasting through everything on Netflix anyways. You're not making better use of your time. This is not going to make you better. This is going to make you waste even more time. It's just going to make you waste even more time if you do something like this. It's like those people who buy those fucking Roombas. I can understand if you work at like a police department. Your job is to protect and serve and take calls and work with the community and, do, bookings and work with kids and dogs and do arrest interviews while the Roomba kind of rocks around the floors and cleans things up. You don't have time for that shit, depending upon the department, all due respect. But if you live in a 1,200 square foot house, You can sweep your own fucking floors. You can vacuum your own fucking rugs. You can wash your own goddamn car. You can rake your own leaves. And you can fuck your own wife. You don't need a robot to do that for you. At least for now. But hey, you don't have time to catch up on that series on Netflix about that serial killer in fucking blah, blah, blah county. No, I don't have time to catch up on that. So I got to go get Neo to go fuck my wife for me so I can catch up on the last 2 episodes. Rake your own goddamn leaves. Among other things. But that's what this is on the horizon. This is not conspiracy. Okay? Conspiracy was the 3i Atlas possibly being an alien comet that was going to make a direct turn for us and had some type of sentinel army that was designed to kill us if provoked. That was a conspiracy theory. This is not. You can buy this robot and have it at your doorstep of your fucking 2-bedroom apartment in 2026 and lease it for 3 years. And yes, Amazon is cutting, once again, tens of thousands of jobs. And yes, minimum wage in California has reached to the point where literally they are not only firing entire staffs, they are getting rid of entire stores, entire businesses, entire franchises. These are real things. So you need to decide the things that you're doing right now. Are you actually utilizing your time to the best of your ability? Are you actually doing a job or starting a business that's of any value? Are you doing things that's actually important, at least in your own head? Or are you just sitting there on the customer service line going through the same fucking if-then scenarios, if this, that, and do that? Oh, let me get you over to tech support. 1 second, please. Or are you just wasting your time? Welcome to Walmart. Something to consider, not in the next 3 years. You've got 12 months. Especially if your title says manager. You can find me on Instagram at @positive_sarcasm. You can hit me up through my website, positivesarcasm.com. Go to the contact section there. Type in podcast. Send me a message with that subject line. You can email me positivesarcasm@outlook.com. You're available with podcast, Rumble video, and YouTube video. And of course, if you just want to download it and you want to drive in your Tesla, self-driving, you can go ahead and listen to the audio version of this ridiculousness. Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Podcast Addict, Apple Podcasts, blah, blah, blah. Or you can download it and stream it directly from my website, positivesarcasm.com. In the meantime, thank you for listening, watching, and subscribing. And I'll talk to you all next week. It's November 1st. No Shave November. Recorded here from the Spare Parts Studio alongside New Hampshire's beautiful seacoast for entertainment purposes only. This has been a Positive Sarcasm presentation.